Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Mike DiLisio here with a live Q&A coming from the Midwest Annex in near Indianapolis, Indiana. It is a chilly morning today, even though it's spring, no longer winter. Someone didn't tell the thermometer that, but at least it's sunny. So I will take the cold with some sun as opposed to the cold and the miserable gray, which has been pretty much the standard since I've been back from the Spring Spectacular last week. Well, it's lovely to be here with you all, and I want to first make sure that I'm coming through more loud and clear. Beautiful, thank you, Mike. So, with that out of the way, let's just talk a little bit about this week. So, some of you may know, especially if you watched any of our Spring Spectacular coverage last week, that this week is going to be a somewhat atypical week for the Dice Tower. And that's because a good chunk of the core staff is in Fort Myers, getting the new studios prepared so that we can, as quickly as possible, get back to producing the content that we love to share with all of you, and hopefully that you all enjoy. But that is going to entail a fair amount of work, as you can imagine. So the technical equipment being shifted from the Homestead studios to the new studios in Fort Myers, that's actively happening. Getting the infrastructure in place, making sure that the internet and all of the other things that you need to be able to successfully produce this type of content, making sure that that all is good to go. And so there's a lot of that type of work happening. And that means that we're going to have a not so typical week of content this week. But that doesn't mean that we've gone dark by any means. First of all, I'm here with you today, and I'll be here throughout the week trying to fill in some gaps and do some things that might help alleviate some of the regular content that you're not used to being happening this week. So I'll be here. Also, we've got this week, every day we've got some replays from the Spring Spectacular. Now, we know that it can be difficult for you to turn into some of these 3-hour blocks of content. And so some of the things may get lost in the shuffle. You may have only been able to watch a couple of hours here and there throughout last week for any number of reasons, right? And so now you're going to have the opportunity to see things in discrete chunks. And so every day we're going to have a live play. We had several live plays throughout the week. And these are going to be separated into individual live plays that are getting replayed. And that's going to be 10 a.m. every day this week, starting with today. After this is over, we're going to be replaying The Adventurers, The Curse of the Pirate Queen, maybe? The CMON new edition of The Adventurers. So there was a live play of that. That was a lot of fun, and so we're replaying that. And then we're also going to be doing the individual top 10s that we were airing in between the live plays last week. And so, again, many of those may have been missed, and so you'll have a chance to watch those now. Today is the top 10 boss battlers from the perspective of one Mr. Joey Evans. All right, so that's going to be today. But every day at 10 a.m. is a live play replay. At noon is going to be a individual top 10. Now, we have on the schedule this Wednesday that crowd surfing is going to happen. Fingers crossed, everybody. Fingers crossed. That's going to entail that we're able to get the live streaming studio up and going. I believe they want to attempt to do that out of the Fort Myers studio. I could be mistaken on that, and we may have to make adjustments on the fly depending on how things go there. But right now, the plan is to have the regular crowd surfing at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Then Thursday, there's a live play for the game Nexus coming from Red Zen Games. Yes. So we are having a live play. I can't tell you which studio that's going to be in. I don't know if it's going to be in the Homestead studio or the new studio in Fort Myers. We'll see. I've got at least one review going up. I've got a review for a game called Revel on Thursday. And then there's going to be various videos from Sam. He's got some top fives, and I think he has at least one review. So we've still got things going on. I also am going to attempt, if I can, to get at least one solo live play this week. There's some possibilities I have in mind. I should get access to the new solo variant for Tokaido. They've created an Automa since Stonemeyer took over that game, so I should get access to that today. If I get a chance to put that through its paces, I might be able to run through the solo mode on a live play. Also, if you saw last week, we had a playthrough of Roth, the upcoming Chip Theory game, and we played that in its competitive player versus player mode, but there is also a cooperative / solo way to play that game, and I may be able to get that in as well. We'll see. So not a traditional week, but hopefully you're not going to feel the pinch too much, because we are going to have things happening. And so now, after that preamble, and I apologize for the lengthy preamble, but I thought you might have questions about the upcoming week and things along those lines, so I would pay that, kind of head those off at the pass. Let's take a look here. I'm going to kind of scroll back through the comments here. Let's take a look. Okay. All right, so I think we've got the mornings, and I always love to see the live chats, folks giving themselves a good morning. All right. Henrik asks, where's the best play? I think I'm going to put it down there. Hey, Mike, are you worried as well at the current time for our hobby and how it will go forward as it seems right now? Worried. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think there's a concern that I have for sure. Tom made a statement about the tariff situation, and it's a very much ongoing, fluid situation. And so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that because I still don't really know all of the impacts. I could tell you on a personal level that my friend Dan and myself are we kickstarted a game that successfully funded, and it's right now actively in production. I made you a mixtape. And there's no question that the tariff as it currently stands is going to affect that project financially. And we are formulating, kind of our plan, but it's an impact. It's a financial impact. And so we're a very small scale, my own little publishing company, this massive asterisk that I started for this game, we're very tiny minnows in the ocean. And there are much bigger companies that are going to certainly feel the financial impact if things stay as they are right now. But it's pretty early to say, so I don't know. There is a concern, but I hope that it will get rectified soon. And that's probably all I'm going to say about that, because I don't really have a lot more information about it. All right. Josh, were you guys impacted by those? Oh, that wasn't what I meant to do. I wanted to just move you. There we go. Were you guys impacted by those insane storms that came through a few days ago? Well, Josh, my wife and my kids were, and thankfully no damage. Everyone kind of hunkered away. I was in Florida. That happened during the Spring Spectacular, so I was not impacted by it other than my concern for my family and loved ones. But thankfully everything was okay. The town that I live in had a verified touchdown tornado that was not terribly far from where we are, but thankfully no real damage as far as we didn't lose power for a significant amount of time. They're not like trees down everywhere, but yeah, there was certainly some impact. Mike Heller says the library is being transported right now, among other things. Absolutely so, yes. Okay. Will there be a launch party? Let me move my dice guy out of the way. Let's put him up there so we have more room for comments down here. Will there be a launch party here on YouTube when the Fort Myers studio goes live? That would be a good idea, good reason for a party playing games on the channel? I don't know the answer to that. As my understanding is, if we're able to make the crowd surfing show go on, that's going to kind of be the first thing that would be aired out of that new studio. So I don't know if there'll be like a formal welcome to the new studio. With Tom, it's certainly a possibility. He always seems to have interesting ideas on how to kind of mark these celebrations. How does it feel to be the most productive member this week? Mark, I doubt very highly that's going to be the case. Just because I'm doing some on-camera stuff throughout this week does not mean that other people are not being incredibly productive. If anything, I feel a bit guilty that I am not having to be, doing their hands dirty and sweaty and all that kind of stuff. Can you focus on more heavy games? You all tend to focus on too many light, medium games. Well, Richard, I mean, that's certainly, your right to hold that opinion. I think that the channel is not focused solely on medium and light games. I do think that there are more of those covered than heavy games because, quite honestly, I believe that they are a larger segment. Medium, light, family style games, there are more of those made than heavy games in the industry. I mean, I think that's pretty much a fact. But so we're going to cover more of those games. There are members of the staff that tend to favor the heavier games. I mean, Chris and Wendy definitely favor heavy games. That's not all they play by any means. I've gotten my my opinions in here and there with some heavier games, with chip theory games and mind clash games and things like that. It's not like those are never covered, but there are more light, medium weight games. They're a larger segment of the hobby, and so that's my opinion on why that is. Other people on staff might have a different opinion, but that's my opinion. Can Joey's opinion on boss battlers be trusted? My water. Can Joey's opinion on anything be trusted? That's a provocative question, Josh. Provocative question. Yes, I think Joey plays a lot of boss battlers. Chris Mayfield, any chance of a review of the game Orongo that is on your shelf? Have not found any decent reviews. Well, the short answer is probably no. And the reason why is that that same game has been re-implemented and just re-released by Simon called Knizia. And I was part of a review for Knizia, and so that's a pretty recent review that's on the channel. Almost everything that is said there, I would say everything about the gameplay is going to be the same, for my opinion, on Orongo. There are some actually both games, unfortunately, have some component issues that I feel detracts a little bit. But overall, you can watch that Knizia review and get a good idea. Spoiler alert, I like the game a lot. Both Orongo and Knizia. I kept both in my collection, because, I'm a Knizia head here, and I tend to, hold on to his games. And two, because I do like the theme of Orongo a bit better, and I like the little wooden moai statues. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. My thoughts on Galactic Cruise is that I have not played it yet, so cannot give you a... Okay, so this is not calling out Kalen here by any means. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Kalen. Solo's Andromeda's Edge would be cool. Absolutely. Also, it's a gigantic table hog, and it takes a tremendously long time to set up and play. And when I'm doing these live plays, especially when I'm doing other things, I have to kind of focus on the things that can be played in a reasonable amount of time and with a reasonable amount of table space. Although, if I do try to pull off Tokaido, I'm not sure, because it's just a very long central board. So that may even keep that from getting done. We'll see. I have to kind of consider those practicalities. We have a lot more flexibility when we're doing live plays in the main studios. They have more advanced overhead technology than I have here in the Midwest Annex. Oh boy. Well, these aren't necessarily quick questions. Is your ranking of architects based on including expansions? I think you mentioned Raiders was like that. And two, can you give your rough ranking of Garfield games? Probably will do a review of Garfield rankings. I think that would be fun to do. So I'm not prepared for that yet. I will tell you that my favorite is Paladins of the West Kingdom. That right, is right now my favorite. But who knows? That can change. I haven't even gotten a chance to play the Anarchy. I actually didn't back those for one reason or another. So I'm very much looking forward to getting a chance to playing the Anarchy, which is the follow-up to Hadrian's Wall, and Skara Brae, which I did get to play once on the cruise. Very much enjoyed that, but I need to get it played some more. So hopefully I can get a chance to play those. I'm sure at least, I can play them from the library, if not before that. Is my ranking of architects included expansions? I don't believe I was taking that into account when I was actually ranking that game. So no. Would it change much? I don't know. Architects I like to play because I think it's other than Raiders, it's the lightest and breeziest base game. Maybe Explorers in there too. So if I want kind of a heavier experience, I think the Architects expansions are fine, but I tend to go for the other games if I'm looking for what Architects with the expansions brings. Greetings from Belgium. Thank you. I really, really loved Belgium when I had a chance to visit last year. What do you feel what do you think makes a good solo-only game? What do you look for? Well, it depends. I've mentioned this on a few of my reviews when I'm doing solo games, even on the playthroughs. I kind of talk about this anecdotally, but I tend to like the solo games that don't have an excessive amount of administration and upkeep by the solo player. So that's one thing I really, and you can do games that have a heavy amount of interaction well without a tremendous amount of upkeep, but it's harder. It's harder to make a solo variant like that. And so I know it's possible because I've seen them. Some of the Automa systems actually do that quite well. So I tend to want something where I'm not having to spend as much time on the AI turn as I am on mine. I would rather that I'm spending a quarter of the time on an AI turn as I am on mine, somewhere in that range. Also, I think that I tend to look for, in most cases, an opponent that I'm facing off against so that there's a clear win-loss condition. There are exceptions to that. Certain puzzle games I think work fine as a high score variant. Although anymore, I almost feel like the high score variant should be obsolete in most cases, because I think even in those types of solo modes, you can include objectives, and you have to complete a certain amount of objectives to win, right? I don't think it's hard to do that anymore. I've seen it enough times that you should be able to pull off something beyond a high score variant with not a whole lot of work by adding solo objectives into a game. There may be exceptions to that rule. So there's a couple of things there. I thought for sure we would have heard your thoughts on Inventors of the South Tigris by now. Is a review forthcoming? The short answer is yes. We need to get that reviewed. I think I've been waiting on other people that may be interested. I know that Chris, within the last month or two, has finally had a chance to play it, but he hadn't played it until relatively recently. I assume maybe Wendy also. Tom, you never know. He could be hit or miss on Garfield games, and so I don't know if he's interested in playing that one or not. But I think it's time to to get that one going. You bring up a good point there. You kind of answered that one. Do you have to help a lot with the move? Can you even help with the move while at home? Well, this is one way I can help with the move while I'm here. Is I can try to produce a bit more content so that again we're not feeling as much like it's a dead week or two, which it's not. We got plenty of stuff going on, and so I can help with that. Other than that, not so sure I can help a whole lot, unfortunately. Chrissy asks, have you played Violet and the Grumpy Niece, a quirky two-player trick-taking game from a Portuguese designer? I have heard about this game, Chrissy, but I've not played it yet. I've been really excited about the kind of the rise in the two-playing trick-taker space that's happening right now amongst the whole trick-taking renaissance that is still strongly in effect. You're starting to see more and more two-player only trick-taking games because a lot of times you would have trick-taking games with a two-player variant. So it would say 2 to 5, but really the game is a 3 to 5 player game and they put on something to try to make it work at 2. Sometimes it works, sometimes not so great. But when you have two-player exclusive trick-taking games, Jekyll and Hyde, for example, then those can be very, very compelling. Lone Wolves is another example. So I have not played this one yet, Chrissy, but it is certainly on my radar. Antarctica, really? Dom, are you really in Antarctica? That's amazing if you are. Oh no. Richard, did Joey put this up as a short? Yeah, Joey had me doing all kinds of weird things in the studio last week so that he can use his program to make people do things. One of them did have me flying around, so I'm assuming that Joey has posted that somewhere. Will you be at PAX Unplugged this year? Kenny, I don't know yet. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's been determined who's going to every convention. Mike Heller, there's a lot of work needed to get a studio ready in time. Not impossible though, very doable. And Mike is in and around that area. He would know. He would know. Is there a game design in your future? Well, I mentioned one previously, one that I've already completed. That is, I Made You a Mixtape. That's coming out. It's scheduled to come out in November of this year, but I can't make any promises. But the timeline is looking much more optimistic than that right now. So that one has been designed. I designed a little trick-taking game that I released in a 30 print run at the game market in Vegas. So that was a little trick-taking game called On the Clock, which I may mess around with it a bit more. That was a bit of a special little project. I'd like to maybe do a bit more development work on that and maybe make that a more fully realized thing. I have another trick-taking co-design right now that it needs some playtesting, but it feels pretty close to done. And then I have another co-design trick-taking game. So I have 3 trick-taking either design or co-designs that are in various stages of completion. What's going to happen with them? I have no idea, especially now. All right. Is Mark Street aware you have stolen his hats? Okay, well, this is a controversial topic, all right? I understand that I have just recently begun wearing the hats, and they are a very particular style, but I have a strong sense that I'm coming to the hat world here from a very different angle, looking at it through a different prism, right? Um, these are the hats, these style of hats, the scally caps or the newsboy hats. Um, I'm coming to these because it's kind of what I grew up with in the punk era in Southern California. So I used to wear these when I was a bit younger. And then I stopped wearing hats for a long time. And now, for both stylistic and practical reasons, i.e., I'm getting sick of the overhead camera shots of the thinning back of my head, I've decided to go back and start wearing these hats again because it's kind of a throwback to 1980s punk culture in Southern California. But yes, I know that these hats are becoming more and more popular now. I know Mark has worn them for years, so he's kind of an OG in his own way there. Tom dabbles in these hats, but he's much more a fedora guy. I am not. I don't see suspenders in my future, although believe it or not, there was a little element of that in the punk styles as well. But I don't think I'm going the suspenders route. Um, but yeah, I'm coming to the hats because I'm kind of like reliving my punk roots. Okay. A question on Lightgate at the new studio. I'm going to refrain because I still have not been to the new studio. So um, we'll see. I'm sure it'll get figured out. I'm sure there's a plan in place. I can't imagine that overhead lights is going to be the demise of the new studio. um, uh-huh. I'm just trying to pick and choose through here. 15-month-old son loves the Mike DiLisio portion of the Top 100 Dice Tower theme song. Who wrote those lyrics and composed the music? That is one Chris Yee that both wrote the lyrics and composed the music. I might have collaborated a little bit on the... No, I think he wrote the lyrics. What is your favorite game that you could fit in your pocket? I mean, it's going to be a card game, likely. That's a sly way of asking my favorite card game, and I'm not prepared to answer that. But it would be a small card game. I'm looking around. I'm looking around. You've got Milkura over there, but I have to stop to play that. That can't be my favorite. Small. Rainbow. That's a small box game, a really small box game. That's a terrific little card game from All Play. I'd have to think about that one, Bruce. Sorry, don't have a great off the top of my head question. Okay, not a stupid question, first of all. I know you were originally based out of Florida when you joined the Dice Tower. That's actually not true, but then moved elsewhere. What is your current work location situation? So the situation is that I was living in Indiana before I got the job with the Dice Tower. I had been a teacher, high school teacher in Indiana for just about 20 years, and married, children, and then when an opportunity opened up at the Dice Tower, that's when I shifted and moved to South Florida. Now, because of a number of reasons, but mostly, almost exclusively family-related reasons, I moved back to Indiana, and I was thankfully given the opportunity to continue to work full-time for the Dice Tower and do remote videos and also obviously I am doing a lot of editing, and I would go down, multiple times. I would say, I traveled multiple times every month. So I'm either down in Florida or I'm going to every convention, pretty much every convention the Dice Tower is going to. So I always have been full time since I've started. That's never changed. I'm still currently full time. Um, but I am back in Indiana until early next year. Early next year, I'm going to be moving to Fort Myers and back in the main studio. So um, basically, when the certain situations are going to change here, familial wise, and our lease will be up, and we're going to move back down, not back down, we're going to move back down to Florida, not to Homestead, to Fort Myers. So aroundish this time next year. I've been shifting my collection to more light on mechanics while still big decisions for my church group, I assume. Are there a couple of Knizia games that leap to mind as general intros? So light on mechanics, yeah, light on mechanics works because you can also mean light on rules. Um, Raw, I love Raw. I mean, that's my favorite game, period. Um, but it's got a little bit of push your luck. It's got a little bit of set collection, um, a little, an auction, a closed economy auction, but none of them are terribly difficult. Like the rules are a few pages. And so I would suggest Raw. I would suggest Through the Desert, a game that has, you're placing out a couple of camels on your turn. Um, Rebirth, one of the newer games from Knizia. You are literally picking up one face down tile and placing it on the board on your turn. But within that, it leads to some great decisions and some great interaction around the table. So Knizia, this is his wheelhouse, is light on rules, heavy on decisions, heavy on interaction, which is probably why he's my favorite designer. Mike, you seem good at keeping up with foreign games, particularly Japanese ones. How do you keep track of what's coming out and when English versions are getting crowdfunded or becoming available? Yes, I am. I am very, I'm very plugged in to that kind of world within board gaming. And so there's a couple of things I do. Number one, there are some fantastic content creators out there who focus on games from Asia. And so I follow them and I watch their content. One is Jay from Cardboard East. He's actually, right now, he's also working for Bezier Games. But he has a fantastic channel called Cardboard East, and he covers a lot of the games from Asia. And so I learn about things from Jay. Taylor's Trick Taking Table, which is by Taylor Reiner. Another fantastic channel where he focuses on trick-taking games, but many of those are imports, and particularly from Asia. Not all, though. And so I follow them on social media. I watch their content. Thankfully, I've become friends with both of them as well. But I also will follow many of the Japanese publishers that I like on social media. And because there are so many, it's so easy to get automatic translations, usually within the social media apps themselves, that you can keep track of what is being released. I also will check with several websites where I have found that you can either kind of see what the new releases are or find places that will sell imported games. Tanuki Games in Austin, Texas has a really nice web shop where they sell a lot of these games. Tricky Imports is another one. So this information is out there, but you kind of do need to know where to start. And so I gave you a little bit here, but if you go to Cardboard East, and he has a video on there which basically is like how to get started in all this. I highly recommend that if you're interested in learning more about this stuff. And hopefully, I'm trying to become a resource as best as I can as well, too. Okay. Hi, Mike. I made a mixtape. I was a punk kid growing up, but I'm not into two of your favorite bands. Okay, I like the sound of Bad Religion, but I don't like his voice. It's too mild. Well, look, I get that. Greg Graffin is the vocalist of Bad Religion. He's also a PhD professor in, I think, molecular biology, evolutionary biology, maybe. I believe one of those too. But they are more melodic, right? They're a punk band. Their music is certainly punk. They started, even more of a hardcore kind of a feel, at least on their first album. But yeah, they have harmonies, right? They have very, very deep, insightful lyrics, and they have harmonies and relatively clean singing so that you can hear those lyrics. That's not going to be for everybody. That's one of the reasons why I love Bad Religion, though, is that they do kind of stand apart. Don't get me wrong, I love rough vocals, Tim Armstrong from Rancid. You can maybe make out one of every 2-3 words from him. Darby Crash, I don't know if you can understand almost anything he's saying, but so I get it. Different strokes, different folks. Pete asks, how difficult is it working with Tom? Have you lost hair yet or pulled out fingernails? Well, let's see. I think I'm good there. Look at that. That's a good look, Mike. This is why I wear the hats. I'm certainly have lost hair over the years, but boy, that was terrible. Okay. I'm so vain about my hair. It's like I don't know. I try not to be too vain, but I do. It bothers me. I don't mind the gray. Actually, I prefer the gray. I think gray suits me better than the kind of the dishwater brown I was living with most of my life. So no, working with Tom, not a problem. Given that you have done many solo-only reviews on the Dice Tower, how about a Dice Tower solo seal of approval? Something that says the solo mode for the game is good, independent of the quality of the overall game. Has this been even discussed? I'm trying to remember if this is something that's been talked about over the years or not. I don't know. I do know that Tom is very intentional about the Dice Tower seals, and he really, I believe, wants to keep the integrity of those. That's my opinion. Those are my words. I certainly think the Dice Tower seals, come from a place of integrity. Not saying that couldn't be done in that way. But I don't know. I don't know if that's even really been discussed before. Maybe it has, but I can't remember. And similarly with social distortion. Oof, killing me. Too mild? Mike Ness too mild? Well, maybe. I guess it depends. Yeah, it depends on what he's more of a roots punk singer. Yeah, so I get it. Definitely not the kind of the what you get with a lot of punk vocalists. Mm-hmm. Mike, you have the exact same hat. You've got the goon from Boston Scally. That's exciting. Do you prefer playing games designed specifically for 2 players, or do you enjoy 2+ player games played with just 2 people? I would say before I joined the Dice Tower, my biggest other than party games, my biggest deficit as far as experience was 2-player only games. Not that I never played them, but it was my primary playing groups were groups, right? Certainly I would play 2-player games or 2-player versions of multiplayer games with my wife, but it was mostly multiplayer games. And so since I started with the Dice Tower, I have found much more opportunity to play two-player games. And so since I have played many more two-player only games, I do think that if I'm going to play a two-player game, I tend to focus on games that are designed for two players, but there are certain games that play great, that are multiplayer games that play great at two. But I think if there's a preference, it would probably be the ones that are specifically designed for two. Shem Phillips solo games have become some of my favorites. What is your favorite Garfield game to play solo? Well, I think that would be Legacy of You, a solo-only resource management conversion campaign style game, because that is solely focused on solo. That's fantastic. But I will tell you, some of his solo modes on the heavier games are really, really smart, really smart. But I just don't tend to play those as much because they are harder to get to the table. So I would go Legacy of You. I'm addressing the hat in the room. Yep, yep. It was, look, I don't think I didn't notice the many, many comments in the live chats throughout the Spring Spectacular. Anytime you change anything, like, and I get it, right? I'm a consumer of content as well. And when somebody does something that is different appearance-wise, you want to have all the answers. You want to know why. What's going on? What's up with the hats all of a sudden? What's up with this person? All of a sudden they're wearing this type of shirt, whatever. You notice these things, whereas the person that is having the change is just like, what's the big deal? I'm wearing hats, But I get it. I get it. I already answered why. Oh, Chris coming with smoke. Everyone knows that the best part of punk rock culture is conforming and wearing a uniform. Wow. Wow. These aren't uniforms. They're symbolic. They're representative of working class culture. These are working class hats. Outrageous. It's not like I'm doing what Bruce is suggesting by sticking random safety pins in my hat. Ridiculous. Okay. Twinkle Starship. Look, Bruce, unless you're wearing hammer pants, you're not putting Twinkle Starship in a pocket. That, of course, is an incredible card game. It's my favorite trick-taking game. But look, I don't wear hammer pants. Okay. Hey, Mike, I'm looking into getting Cusco, but I don't really understand the city collections. Do you know if they're expansions or sand? Oh, okay. Well, when I read this question first, Jacob, I was thinking one thing, and now I realize what you're asking. So when you first said I'm getting Cusco, and then you asked about collections, I thought you meant Cusco by Kramer and Kiesling, which is a remake of a game called Java that was part of a Mask trilogy that also included Tikal and Mexica. But no, Jacob, I believe you're asking about Stefan Feld's Cusco by Queen Games, which is part of this city collection that includes, 47,000 Feld games at this point? I think we're at 47,000. Do I know if they're expansions or standalone games? I think that's the only thing I know, is that I believe the city games are all standalone games. I don't think any of them are expansions, although some of those city games have expansions, if that makes sense, right? Like one of the games, I believe, is Marrakesh. And there is an expansion for Marrakesh, but Marrakesh itself is a standalone game. It's not an expansion for any of the other 750 city games that are out there. I also don't really understand the city collections. But then again, I don't think I'm the target audience. Some of Feld's games I absolutely love. Others I think are good. Others I don't really like. So I think that the City Collection was really, let me put it to you this way. If they did something similar like this with Reiner Knizia, I'd buy all of them, right? That's the market, is the people that really love Stefan Feld and people that liked these individual games. I'm not saying that, like, one of the original Feld games that I really liked, if they came out with a new City Edition, I might be compelled to take a look at it. But I think what they're really looking for are the big Feld fans that are going to buy all of these with the deluxe components, yada, yada, yada. Just my opinion. My gosh, it's 9:45 already? All right. My favorite video editing software is the only one I know how to use, which is Final Cut Pro. And even then, I'm very much a novice, even after all these years. These programs are so powerful and complex. And I still am very much a novice. The original program I learned was iMovie because it's what came with the Mac that I had. And so I learned that. And then moving to the Dice Tower, I upgraded to Final Cut Pro, and have since become at least a novice in that. Premiere Pro is supposed to be great too. I have not really messed with Premiere Pro at all. When reviewing games, do you play with different people? Do you think who you play a game with when reviewing impacts how you perceive the quality of said game? This is a good question. Not that these all haven't been good, but this is actually the good question. I'm kidding. Do I play with different people? As much as I can. Yeah, absolutely. I do have a couple of regular game groups that I play with. And Bruce, who's in the chat, is somebody that oftentimes when I play with him, he'll bring along a couple of people, which is extremely helpful for me because they're not always the same people. And it kind of helps, it makes a wider pool of people that I can play with. And that's always nice. But even in the past, when I've had kind of regular game groups, I would usually have more than one. And you tend to find the kind of the quirks. Quirks is the wrong word. You tend to find the preferences of the people that you play with if you've played with them a few times, and that can kind of help your perspective be like, okay, I think this is a game they might like. This is a game they might bounce off of, without stating that and trying not to have too much of a preconceived notion. But yeah, I do like to play games with different people. Obviously, when I'm down in Florida, I play with the Dice Tower crew, and I think we all have pretty strong opinions about how the other people play games. Whether they're accurate or not, who knows? But we've played with each other so many times. I think we have a pretty good idea on how the other person plays, what types of games they like and don't like. Except for Z, I never have any idea if Z's going to like a game or not. Here, I was like, this feels like it was designed directly, like Z told somebody, here's how I want you to design this game. I play it and I'm like, oh, I give it to him. It's all right. And then a game that's straight trash, he loves. I don't get it. Who I play a game with when reviewing, will that perceive the quality? I think it can. Quite honestly, I think it can. I think if anything, oftentimes it will at least let me know that a game's design might be divisive. If I have wildly varying opinions amongst different game groups, that tells me that some people love the game, some people absolutely hate it. That can give me some type of perspective. If it has universal appeal, of course that's going to impact it. If I'm playing a game, several times with 10 different people and they all love it, well, yeah. Even if I don't love it, it's going to impact my review, right? I have to keep those things in mind. So, hope that answered that. Trying to see, was someone? Try to see what Chris is referring to. Not listed for sale yet. I don't want to presume what you're talking about. I have an idea maybe, but you're not interrupting. But now I kind of want to find out what that's referring to. Tanuki is good people. Chris, fantastic, fantastic. I would love, if I go to Austin, I'm 100% going to go to Tanuki Games. I've never been to Austin before. I've been to Texas several times. What U.S. town or city do you think has the largest board game community presence? I live in a board game community dead zone. That's a bummer, right? Actually, South Florida is a board game community dead zone in a lot of ways. I mean, there are a couple of groups, but I will tell you, and I haven't lived, well, I've lived in several places actually, but not since I've been in the board game hobby. I think Seattle has a very vibrant scene, but I've never seen a gaming city like Indianapolis. Never. Groups all over the place. Incredible game stores. Multiple incredible game stores in Indianapolis. You've got the United States' biggest board gaming convention held here. The city really shuts down and caters to board gamers and RPGers during the week of Gen Con. Like, it's not just something that's happening. Like, the city is all about Gen Con when Gen Con's here. It's not even a question. It's amazing to me what a strong board gaming city Indianapolis is. I get the impression that St. Louis is also a very vibrant board gaming city. You've obviously got, Stonemaier is there. Geekway to the West is there. You're in and around other areas or other publishers. I know, All Play is in that general vicinity, and maybe Bezier is in that general vicinity. So the Midwest actually is pretty strong for board gaming. And I think there's partially can be explained by, I don't think you tend to find vibrant board gaming communities in big cities because there are so many other distractions, would be my guess. Just a guess. Josh, my wife and I are headed to Indy next weekend for her birthday. We are meeting the Dunhams at Fogo de Chão for a meal, but we need something else. Any tips for local places to eat downtown? Well, there's a stock answer, but it's because it's truly great. If you want a classic American steakhouse that is one of the top in the country, consistently named, then St. Elmo's is the way to go. Make reservations, but St. Elmo's is fantastic. I had a couple of other places that I easily could have mentioned before that have unfortunately shut down. The meatball place shut down, which is just a crime. There's also, there is an area of downtown, well, it's actually a little north of downtown, called Broad Ripple that has a couple of really interesting restaurants. And then on Massachusetts Avenue in downtown Indy, you've got some great restaurants there. Bluebeard is very highly acclaimed. So there's some really good restaurants downtown. But St. Elmo's is kind of like the local recommendation. Twinkle Starship should have been Mike's #1 space game. Don't think I didn't consider it, other than the fact that there is no theme at all there. My friendly local game store has Paladins of the West Kingdom plus the expansion for 30 euros and Wayfarers for 20 euros. It is unusually low. Would you recommend to grab one or both? Do you like mid to heavy euros? If the answer is yes, then snatch them both up, because Paladins plus the expansion would normally go for much more than both of those are combined. That's an incredible deal. Okay. Who's your favorite sitcom TV dad? That would be Frank Costanza. And it's not even close. From Seinfeld. Was your live play of Inish the first time you had played it? Asks Luke Pryor of Game Found fame and powerlifting fame as well. I want to say he did an incline bench press of about 750 pounds last week. It was not the first time I had played it, but it was the first time I had played it since I believe I sent the picture to Chris. It was of my board game stats, because I'd been off board game stats for like 5 years while I was working for the Dice Tower. I'm back on doing it again. I want to say it was either 2016 or 2019. Probably 2016 was the last time I had played Inish, and it was the first time playing with the expansion. It reminded me, that live play reminded me of the reasons why I like Inish and the reasons why I don't like Inish. I think it does some things really well. I love the way the drafting works in that game. I love that pretty much everything you're doing is on the cards. I just really, I can't get past the fact that the game can drag on, because essentially it's like, I'm going to be the winner, pile on them. Then someone else, I'm going to be the winner now, pile on them. It just tends to happen too often for my taste. So very interesting design, very unique design, but I can't get over the king making thing. The Jason Dunham played with us this weekend. He did indeed, and I think, boy, he was crushing it. He won most of the games. Okay. Mike, what is the rarest board game you own? That would be the Oink Games edition of Modern Art, which was known as Stamps. This was a ridiculously kind and generous gift from Bruce Schwerin here in the chat. And it's really hard to get a hold of that game. And part of me was like, I got to keep this in shrink. And then the better part of me said, no, this is not just a piece of curio. It's a game. It was meant to be played. And so we played it last year, and it was delightful. 958. Okay. I just find this funny. I know this is not what you mean, Daniel. Just ordered from Tanuki for the first time. Good to hear the praise. Ordered, deep regrets. I put a fake comma in there. You didn't get deep regrets from ordering. You ordered the game, deep regrets. But sorry, sometimes I crack myself up. All right. Yeah, maybe I need to stop recommending Jay. I just checked out the latest vid from Cardboard East. He's wearing a t-shirt with my face on it. That was a joke. That shirt you can blame on Chris Yee, not on Jay. At Essen last year, Chris made these shirts that had a picture of my face, and it said Mike DiLisio, internet celebrity, or something like that. Something I had put in a top 10 video as a joke. And he gave a shirt to me? No, he kept a shirt and he gave one to Jay. I got a bag. And so Jay, I think every so often wears that to, I don't know if it's a shout out or a subtle dig, but either way, it's funny. I gotta wrap this up quickly. Well, somewhat quickly. Here's what I am going to say. I'll go for another minute or two, make sure I get every question, but make sure when you're done with this, you check out the live play of Adventurers, just going up live right now. If you want to leave now and go to that, that's fine. I'm just going to answer a couple more, but I want to make sure. Oh, okay, I'm not too far from the bottom. All right. See, this is a tough question, Michael. What should I do with Dwellings of Eldervale? It's unboxed as of yet. When in the meantime, Andromeda's Edge has been released. Do you recommend to sell Dwellings and invest in Andromeda instead? I can't give you the answer to that. Okay. I will tell you, I have kept both. I do prefer, as odd as it sounds, because Dwellings of Andromeda's Edge, I just named as my #1 space game. But I do probably prefer the theme of the fantasy of the dragons in Dwellings. I also have a soft spot for Dwellings because that was the game I played first. I don't know that I would recommend that you sell something that you must have bought for a reason. But I would say if you've looked at videos and that Andromeda's Edge is more compelling to you now, maybe you prefer the theme in Andromeda's Edge, then maybe see if you can recoup most of what you put into Dwellings and put it into Andromeda. But that's a really difficult question for me to answer. That's the best I think I can do. All right, folks, I do think we're gonna cut it here because I still have things I need to do, quite a few things I need to do. I got to continue working on those live plays that are getting redone and the top 10s that we have promised for you. So again, slightly different week, but it's certainly not going black. It's not going dead. Far from it. We've got plenty of things going up. We're going to try to make crowd surfing happen on Wednesday. We do have a live play happening on Thursday. We've got top 10s and live play replays going up every day this week at 10 and noon. Live plays at 10, top 10s at noon. So stick around for those. I may be able to sneak a couple of live solo plays in as well, as I mentioned. Thank you as always to the fantastic live chat. You all are fantastic. And look, hopefully I'll see you live again later this week. No promises there because it kind of depends on how things shake out. But if not, I'll definitely be seeing you again soon. And stick around, check out our stuff, see if there's anything you missed over that Spring Spectacular. So now you get a chance to check it out. All right, that's going to do it. Sadly, it's going to do it for me. But I guess I will see you soon. This is Mike DiLisio checking off from the Dice Tower Midwest Annex.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.